It is October 22nd, 2021, and this is the Daily Rob. And as he is out on assignment, is it okay if I dox where you are? Because tomorrow you will be millions of miles away, Rob.
I will be, well, I don't know about a million, but yes, Stu, I will have to leave to another destination to try to save the world.
But you are currently in South Carolina, and I saw that you were at Sullivan's Island earlier today.
Indeed, I was, Stu. Are you familiar with Sullivan's?
It's hallowed ground, Rob. Hallowed ground.
Well, for a number of reasons. One is the big Revolutionary War battle. But let me just say one thing, Stu, is that the South Carolinians want to claim Edgar Allan Poe because he lived there for like a year or two. He's really from Virginia, was educated in Virginia, went to the University of Virginia. Just want to get that clear. I went to Poe's Pub today, which is one of my favorite spots down here. And anyway,
That's awkward. Do they know that there's a Poe's Pub here in Richmond?
Obviously, ours is the most authentic Poe's Pub, but I doubt they know that. They're very conceited,
Okay.
unlike we humble Virginians.
Well, I will say that Sullivan's Island is my favorite Revolutionary War battle, and that says a lot considering I'm such a big fanboy of Lafayette, and he had some pretty awesome battles, but they take the cake, so I'm willing to concede that.
Well, the South Carolinians, I must say, they put up a bold fight, and they kept the Royal Navy out of Charleston for a number of years. And you know what they have to thank? What they have to thank for their victories, Stu?
Mother Nature.
That's right, sand and palmetto trees. The Royal Navy's cannonballs were just absorbed by the fort they have, Fort Moultrie. Well, it's Fort Moultrie now. But and it was a tremendous battle, and the Brits threw everything they had at it, and fort was still standing.
And in this spirit of loving Mother Nature, I think this is the perfect leeway into our first story of the day, which concerns the Sunrise Movement. Now, I'm familiar with the Sunrise Movement due to environmental stuff that I'm interested in, and they are essentially the youth grassroots movement. So the Sunrise Movement out of DC decided that they were going to disavow a rally because too many Jewish groups were involved. And so they had a problem with specifically any Jewish group that was fond of Israel. So that includes the National Council of Jewish Women, which was established in 1893. And they've done lots of great interviews. The Pittsburgh chapter specifically did with famous people like Oppenheimer and Salk. And then they also were angry at the Jewish Council for Public Affairs, which was found in 1944, but is under the umbrella of the Jewish Federation of North America, 1932. So this Sunrise Movement, which only isn't even a decade old yet, has problems with organizations that are either over 100 years old or getting pretty darn close to it. So,
Stu, would you say that these environmental movements are really pseudo movements for leftist causes?
Absolutely. Yeah, and so
that's how they get a little bit of popular support on their side, and get money from kind of the vacuous, empty-minded liberals here. This sounds like a pretty name. I'll give you some money. And what they really are is an anti-Semitic leftist group.
Yes, and so because it falls into that same umbrella of, well, we're a decentralized group. So Sunrise DC was able to say this, but the heads Sunrise Movement, they said, well, we're not really 100% affiliated with them. And so they didn't really condemn them, but they just essentially said all the words they need to, try to smooth things over. So, example from their press release was Sunrise is a movement of young people from all paths of life committed to stopping climate change and creating millions of good paying jobs in the process. Uh, our work on behalf of all humanity is rooted in the value of human dignity, and we reject all forms of discrimination, including anti Semitism and anti Palestinian racism. So they go on, they say they're decentralized, and then they end.
There are a lot of code words they use there, which are really leftist words.
Oh, buckle up then, Rob. As a national movement that supports freedom and dignity for all people, we will always welcome anyone who acts on our principles and chooses to join the fight for collective liberation.
There we believe dignity was one too. Don't forget that. And and good paying jobs means jobs in which the state controls everything and doles out the money, but continues to. You're on to something, son.
We believe that the rights of Palestinians are a part of that struggle and are committed to embracing that struggle together. Now, let's dive a little deeper. So, Sunrise Movement is largely affiliated with the Justice Democrats. That's going to be like AOC. Sadly, my boy Ro Khanna is in that group. But
again, justice is another code word.
Yeah,
because it's justice is a synonym kind of for equality, and what equality means for the left is driving out all productivity and ambition, and having everybody be the same.
And their word for that is equity. Let's not forget that. You gotta speak their language sometimes. This organization was essentially found using a grant from the Sierra Club by Michael K. Dorsey, who has done a lot of work for decades. Some of it I find interesting, some of it I do not like. And then later on, Varshini Prakash, she makes the youth wing of it, essentially. And she makes the youth wing of Sunrise. So it goes from an education group to a youth movement.
Sounds like it could be a little money laundering going on too, to get away from some of the FEC laws.
So, and it's very interesting that you bring that up, because
I'm a very interesting man, Stu.
I don't deny that. So it's interesting you mentioned that, because when we look at what's going on in Alberta, Canada right now, they actually just realized that and I'm going to get you the exact dates for this, but they discovered that a lot of their eco movements, which include Sierra Club of Canada, were received $1.28 billion from 2003 to 2019 from foreign groups. And some of those monies were actually specifically for anti-Alberta resource development activity. Now, do you know what the fourth largest oil reserve in the world is?
It's probably the sands in Alberta.
You are on the money. It is. So any other foreign organization, maybe like Saudi Arabia or Argentina, would have an interest in destabilizing Alberta by getting rid of their competition. So if this organization isn't letting it be known what their funds are, that's scary. And there have been some good investigative journalism actually investigating the Sierra Club. And it kind of goes back to that same thing that I talked about with UVA and the New York Times, where the Sierra Club gets that lineage from John Muir. So we know it's a good organization, but it's essentially been hollowed out and destroyed. So it doesn't really represent what it used to, but it still has name brand recognition. But then Lenin
said that he would give them the rope to hang themselves. And what he was really talking about is the simple-minded dolts who will believe anything. And I think some of these groups have those type of members in it, and they don't understand what the foreign money is even doing.
Exactly. They don't realize that they're the pawns in the big game of chess.
Yes. Stu, I have one comment to make real quick.
Yes, sir.
Well, this idea of Israel, and this group is pro-Palestinian, and what I've never understood is why so many people hate Israel. They're the only, so much to the left, they're the only rational people in the Middle East. They're a democracy. They have the rule of law. They have our Judeo-Christian values, and a lot of liberals hate them, and they support, thousands of rockets. They don't think Israel has the right to fight back when thousands of rockets are raining down on them. So I asked a buddy of mine who's a minister, I said, why is it that the left hates Israel so much? And immediately he had the answer. He said, they hate them because they're successful. They're jealous of them because, they're wealthy and they're successful. And that kind of describes the left. So anyway, I just want to get that off.
And so, for example, do you want to know what the horrendous thing that the National Council of Jewish Women did for Israel?
What did they do?
So after the Holocaust, they made care boxes for the kids that were living in Israel, so they could have something to play with and have, crayons, just have some stuff of their own. And then they helped fund essentially feminist classes at the Israeli universities. So,
well, that just shows you how radical they are, and the true colors of a lot of these environmental groups. They're just fronts for socialist and leftist causes.
And speaking of environmental groups, do you know what Greenpeace did today?
I don't know, Stu.
So they're harassing Manchin, and they're outside of his little boat, and they have a giant tapestry hanging from a building that says, "Who else will you throw overboard?" Because he won't agree to this big old spending bill.
So if you won't agree to wasting $3.5 trillion that all goes to special interest, then that means you hate Flipper the dolphin.
Yeah,
and that's the way they. Yeah. But again, it shows you that they're not really environmentalist groups; they're socialist groups of something pretty and that people can get a pretty name that people can get behind and support.
Yeah, you don't see them fighting for, restorative farming. You don't see them actually getting deep into actual things that help the environment. What you see them getting involved in are essentially hyper progressive topics. So,
Stu, did you know that there are more board feet of timber in the United States now than there were when John Smith got to Jamestown?
I think I actually did know that, and
I'm surprised, Stu, that you would know that.
And something.
And you know why there is? Because under our English common law, where people actually own land, they become a steward of the land. And if you are a steward of the land, then you want to see the land increase in value. What Greenpeace and all these other groups want to do is just have everything, not owned by anybody and have nature run wild. And, man is put on earth to be a steward of the earth. And that's environmentalism via property rights, which works much better than their, kumbaya collectivism.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
We are trying to ask you to vote yes on the Green New Deal.
Okay, I'll tell you what. We have our own Green New Deal piece of legislation.
Well, we're trying
Okay.
to promote the Green New Deal.
Well, there are reasons why I can't, because there's no way to pay for it.
Yes, there is.
That's
We
the
have
big
tons
reason.
of money going to the military. Half of a lot of it is going to the military.
Get
But we
your
have come to a
copy.
point where our earth is dying, literally, and it is going to be a pricey and ambitious plan that is needed to deal with the magnitude of that issue. And so we're here asking you to vote yes on the resolution for the Green New Deal, because that is the only plan
That
is
resolution
worth-
will not pass the Senate, and you can take that back to whoever sent you here.
Some scientists have said that we have 12 years to turn this around.
Well, it's not
The
going to get
government's
turned
supposed-
around in 10 years.
the
What we
government's
can do
Senator, if
is
this
put
doesn't get turned
ourselves-
around in 10 years, you're looking at the faces of the people who are going to be living with these
Guess what?
consequences.
The government is supposed to be for the people and by the people and all
You know
for the
what's
people.
interesting about this group is I've been doing this for 30 years. I know what I'm doing. You come in here and you say it has to be my way or the highway. I don't respond to that. I've gotten elected. I just ran. I was elected by almost 1 million vote plurality. And I know what I'm doing. So, maybe people should listen a little bit.
The arrogance of man is thinking nature is in our control, and not the other way around. Let them fight.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Well, I think it gets into the deeper kind of topic of what you kind of see actually in Canada right now, where you are so restricted in the grocery store. You can only go buy food, but you couldn't buy like arts and crafts right now due to the COVID, mega lockdown that they have going on right now. So you don't even have the right to free expression in Canada because you want to buy a certain product. So they just want to give you essentially like your state-sponsored little meal, your state-sponsored little activity you can do, and then that's all you can do. So you have no autonomy to actually express yourself, to live a life, to explore, to see what this whole thing is even all about, because you're just being limited by what the state is telling you to do, because it's, by their definition, saving the planet. When the one thing that will save the planet is that there's obviously a spiritual crisis that many people have about how they actually understand what their duty on this earth is to do. And if you think your duty on this earth is to tell other people what to do, then you are probably a destructive human being at the end of the day.
There you go. You're Karen.
Yeah.
You hit them.
Did you see it happen?
No, I just pulled up. I mean, it's obvious. So, yeah.
Right here.
You hit them. You hit.
Somebody hit me. Look, the back of my car isn't hurt at all. Somebody smashed right in there.
Okay. All right.
I'm lucky I'm alive.
Yeah. Nice.
That bag burst.
Oh my
the
God.
bag, the seatbelt came out and I'm alive.
You gotta be more careful when you
Oh,
drive.
shut up.
It was your.
Shut up. Was it your fault?
It was
Was
your-
you the one?
Was it the
Get
do-
the cops here fast.
It was.
She said just go over to your car.
It was probably the dog driving.
Shut up. Shut up. Oh, did you do it? You're laughing, aren't you?
I'm not.
You didn't have COVID, did you, for 2 years?
As soon as it happened.
Look at this. Take my picture. I'm a teacher for Northeast High School, but I'm not
Really?
teaching because I had COVID.
So could you back up from me then? If you had COVID?
I had the 2 doses of the Moderna. Did you get the vaccine?
No, so you should probably back
oh,
up then.
boy, I could get sick from you.
Yes,
you
you
really
should-
are an
You should back up.
Put a mask on.
Lucky your dog didn't get hurt.
Give me your name.
Frank.
Frank
Brian.
what?
Brian. Yeah.
Frank what?
And Canada wants you to eat the borscht
Yeah.
with all the other comrades of the party.
And when your class of people become essentially irrelevant, they'll let you starve to death. That's widely documented.
You're a useful tool.
Yeah.
Look what they did in the Ukraine. Just mowed them down.
Yeah.
Well, good, Stu. Good reporting.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's what I'm investigating right now, and I will say that there's some interesting ways that you can actually FOIA certain nonprofits, but they have to technically qualify as a public body. So I'm actually looking into all the details for that. So I would love to know where a lot of these places get their money from. Any stories you're looking at right now?
No, but I have a quote or two to end this with, and this is a good one if you think about it. Property is in its nature timid and seeks protection, and nothing is more gratifying to government than to be a protector.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it too.
Almost ties all of this together again. So
All right, Stu, you the man.
right on. Have fun on assignment. Be safe. Don't let
Thank
the
you.
other spies get you.
Build back better, blah, blah, blah. Green economy, blah, blah, blah. Net zero by 2050, blah, blah, blah. Net zero by 2050, blah, blah, blah. Net zero, blah, blah, blah. Climate neutral, blah, blah, blah.